trumpet sounding, thunder rolls. Falling, falling is Babylon the Great. The nations in famine are plagued by adulterous ways. Drink of the wine you knowingly self-prescribed. Now marked upon your head is written life or death. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. The nations in famine are plagued by adulterous ways. Spirit of the living God, come and have your way. Spirit of the living God, come and have your way.
And all the kings of the north, far and near, one with another, and all the kingdoms of the world which are upon the face of the earth. And the king of Sheshach shall drink after them. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Drink ye and be drunken, and spew, and fall, and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. And it shall be, if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand to drink, then shalt thou say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ye shall certainly drink. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have 1 mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Nebuchadnezzar's statue explained. Revelation 17:10 through 17:11. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Verse 11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. Okay? Now, if you notice, during Daniel's interpretation of the dream in which Nebuchadnezzar had, there are only 4 kingdoms that were accounted for, which were Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, with the 2 legs of iron mixed with miry clay at the toes and the feet. However, the first 2 kingdoms were dealt with by God, which were Egypt, which was when the children of Israel were freed from captivity. Then he dealt with Assyria, who took away the northern kingdom first. Okay? And they went into captivity also. So those 2 are not mentioned. This is why Daniel only speaks of or spoke about the 4 kingdoms. So now, if we do it in succession, the order of kingdoms, it was 1. And then, by the way, they were all world superpowers at the time. Even now, America is a superpower. So 1 is Egypt, 2 is Assyria, 3 is Babylon, 4 is Medo-Persia, 5 is Greece, 6 is Rome, 7 is England, which nobody talks about, which they said the sun never set on the English Empire because they were all the way out to China and Hong Kong and Australia. Okay? That's why that proverb was said about them. And of course, 8 is the United States, aka Mystery Babylon. Notice the 10 toes of iron mixed with clay, the D10 nations. Okay? So that's it. Notice there is a eastern leg being the NATO countries or European nations. Okay? And also a western leg, that being the United States of America. And again, iron mixed with clay. They're a mingled people. Okay? So you can see when it says that he is of the 7, but he's also the 8, meaning he's of England. From out of England came America, and America was born. They're descendants of Europeans. Do you see that? All right? It is that simple. That's why it says your mother will be sorely confounded. Britain. In addition, let's not forget that all these superpowers have something in common: the enslavement of the children of Israel. All of them played a part in the enslavement of the children of Israel. You might want to look at the current superpower, which is America, and look at H.R. 1242, which was signed by Donald J. Trump, about the 400 years of affliction or the African American experience in America, Babylon, USA. Satan indwelling the Antichrist. Parts of Britain or England at the time was also conquered by the Romans at the height of their power. The Greco-Roman Empire never really died. Its traditions continued throughout the Western European nations such as Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, and Britain. History must fit the prophecies of the Bible, such as the prophecy of King Cyrus, and not the other way around. God's words are true. Are you willing to bet on man's word? Daniel 7:4. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Note, this was the establishment of the 13 British colonies, and ultimately the United States, July 4th, 1776. Every president until now had a man's heart. Well, that will change in the near future. Yes, the Antichrist arises out of the United States, which is a superpower. Daniel 4, verse 16. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This was Nebuchadnezzar's second dream interpretation given to him by Daniel about his fate. However, this also is a foreshadowing of what is to happen to Satan's kingdom here on earth during the last 7 years, particularly the last 3.5 years or 42 months. Notice Satan is cast out of heaven by Michael and the good angels, and Satan's wings were plucked. No more access to heaven. He is cast out. I repeat, he is cast out, and heaven rejoices of this fact that he is cast out. Notice it said that Satan is like a raging lion, seeking whom he may devour or destroy. Do you see it now? When he indwelleth, Satan indwelleth Donald Trump, a beast's heart will be given to Donald Trump. Do you see it now? Okay.
For thus saith the Lord God of Israel unto me, Take the wine cup of this fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And they shall drink, and be moved, and be mad, because of the sword that I will send among them. Then took I the cup at the Lord's hand, and made all the nations to drink unto whom the Lord had sent me, to wit, Jerusalem, and the cities of Judah, and the kings thereof, and the princes thereof, to make them a desolation, and astonishment, and hissing, and a curse, as it is this day. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his servants, and his princes, and all his people, and all the mingled people, and all the kings of the land of Uz, and all the kings of the land of the Philistines, and Ashkelon, and Azzah, and Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, and Moab, and the children of Ammon, and all the kings of Tyrus, and all the kings of Zidon, and the kings of the isles which are beyond the sea, Dedan, and Tema, and Buz, and all that are in the utmost corners, and all the kings of Arabia, and all the kings of the mingled people that dwell in the desert, and all the kings of Zimri, and all the kings of Elam, and all the kings of the Medes, and all the kings of the north, far and near, one with another, and all the kingdoms of the world which are upon the face of the earth. And the king of Shishak shall drink after them. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Drink ye and be drunken, and spew, and fall, and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. And it shall be, if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand to drink, then shalt thou say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ye shall certainly drink. For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, and should ye be utterly unpunished? Ye shall not be unpunished, for I will call for a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore prophesy thou against them all these words, and say unto them, The Lord shall roar from on high, and utter his voice from his holy habitation. He shall mightily roar upon his habitation. He shall give a shout, as they that tread the grapes, against all the inhabitants of the earth. A noise shall come even to the ends of the earth. For the Lord hath a controversy with the nations. He will plead with all flesh. He will give them that are wicked to the sword, saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, evil shall go forth from nation to nation, and a great whirlwind shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. And the slain of the Lord shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, neither gathered nor buried. They shall be dung upon the ground. Howl, ye shepherds, and cry, and wallow yourselves in the ashes, ye principal of the flock. For the days of your slaughter and of your dispersions are accomplished, and ye shall fall like a pleasant vessel. And the shepherd shall have no way to flee, nor the principal of the flock to escape. A voice of the cry of the shepherds, and an howling of the principal of the flock shall be heard, for the Lord hath spoiled their pasture. And the peaceable habitations are cut down, because of the fierce anger of the Lord. He hath forsaken his covert as the lion, for their land is desolate, because of the fierceness of the oppressor, and because of his fierce anger.
The cup of the Lord's wrath. Jeremiah 25:15, verse 26, verse 27 and 28. For thus saith the Lord God of Israel unto me, Take the wine cup of this fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink. And all the kings of the north, far and near, one with another, and all the kingdoms of the world, which are upon the face of the earth, and the king of Shishak shall drink after them. In other words, Babylon will be the last to taste destruction. It is Satan's main kingdom, the United States. In other words, the United States is going to be used to destroy these other kingdoms. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Drink ye and be drunken, and spew and fall and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. And it shall be, if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand to drink, then shalt thou say unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ye shall certainly drink. And you can see this playing out right now in the news on the mainstream media, where they're saying, well, if we do a no-fly zone, then it's going to be World War III. But they are going to enter into this war. It cannot be put off. The Bible said they shall certainly drink. They are trying their best not to go into World War III, or so they're trying to portray to us. In actuality, they actually want to go to World War III so they can have the Great Reset. Okay? Isaiah 51, verse 20 to verse 23. Thy sons have fainted. They lie at the head of all the streets as wild bulls in a net. They are full of the fear of the Lord, the rebuke of thy God. Therefore hear now this, thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. And he's speaking of the children of Israel who have been afflicted for 400 years in slavery since 1619, arriving in Jamestown in Virginia. And then 2019, a document called H.R. 1242 was signed by Donald Trump about their plight and experience in America under the Atlantic slave trade. Isaiah 51 verse 22, thus saith thy Lord, the Lord and thy God, that pleaded the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt not more drink it again. Isaiah 51:23, but I will put it in the hand of them that afflict thee, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. Do y'all see that? Okay. Note, in case you are wondering who Shishak is, read below Jeremiah 51:41. How is Shishak taken? And how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? It will be a surprise attack. How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? With all the early warning systems, radars, and all of that, the Lord is saying, how did y'all be surprised by this attack, this invasion? But it's coming, y'all. It is coming. And it cannot be stopped. It cannot be put off. No matter how much money Congress throws at it, at Ukraine, to try to contain it in that area, it is going to spread. It cannot be contained.
Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal. Uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke, and thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever. So that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries wherein thou hast laboured from thy youth, if so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast laboured, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter. None shall save thee. when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword.
Saints of God, the red horse rider has been released. The second seal of Revelation has been broken by Christ, Yeshua. This war that is taking place in Ukraine, it cannot be contained. As I've said before, this will begin to spread throughout the world, because it says he was given a great sword to take peace from the earth. Sides are being taken. As you can see, the Western world, or what we call the free world or democratic world, versus the Eastern, the autocratic, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, etc. Okay? It is happening. The red horse rider has been released.
But I think it's more likely we're going to end up, if we end up in a war, a real shooting war with a major power, it's going to be as a consequence of a cyber breach of great consequence. And it's increasing exponentially, the capabilities. When I was with Mr. Putin, who has a real problem, he's sitting on top of an economy that has nuclear weapons and oil wells and nothing else. Nothing else. Their economy is what, the 8th smallest in the world now? Largest in the world? He knows he's in real trouble, which makes him even more dangerous in my view.
That for too long has given Putin his grip on Western politics. Our mission is clear. Diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily.
We go now to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who's in Moldova this morning. Mr. Secretary, good morning to you. Vladimir Putin has said that sanctions amount to a declaration of war. They are impacting his economy, but they're not stopping his military. When will sanctions stop the fight?
Margaret, the impact of the sanctions is already devastating, which is presumably why he said what he said. But at the same time, we continue to see President Putin doubling down and digging in on this aggression against Ukraine. That's continuing, and I think we have to be prepared, unfortunately, tragically, for this to go on for some time.
NATO has said none of its 30 members are willing to set up a no-fly zone. President Biden has been very clear he has no interest in that or combat troops. But what more can the United States do here? If, for instance, the Polish government, a NATO member, wants to send fighter jets, does that get a green light from the U.S., or are you afraid that that will escalate tension?
No, that gets a green light. In fact, we're talking with our Polish friends right now about what we might be able to do to backfill their needs if, in fact, they choose to provide these fighter jets to the Ukrainians. What could we do? How can we help to make sure that they get something to backfill the planes that they're handing over to the Ukrainians? We're in very active discussions with them about that. Look, I've been in Europe for the last couple of days, working closely, as always, with our allies and partners at NATO, the European Union, the G7 countries, and all of us together are continuing to take steps to increase the pressure on Russia through additional sanctions, all of which are very actively under discussion and will be implemented in the coming days, as well as taking further steps to give the Ukrainians what they need to defend themselves against the Russian aggression.
How do you convince Vladimir Putin that this isn't ultimately about regime change? How do you get him to back down?
For us, it's not about regime change. That's the Russian people have to decide who they want to lead them. And look, as I said, the challenge is this. Vladimir Putin continues to press this aggression. That's why I say I'm afraid this could go on for some time. But it's going to end, and it's going to end with Ukraine prevailing. Because even as Putin has the capacity, because he can, the manpower, the equipment that he has, that he can bring to bear, can continue to grind down these incredibly brave and resilient Ukrainians, winning a battle is not the same thing as winning a war. Taking the city is not the same thing as capturing the hearts and minds of Ukrainians. What they've demonstrated with extraordinary courage is that they will not be subjugated to Vladimir Putin's will and be under Russia's thumb. So whether that takes another week, another month, another year to play out, it will. And I know how this is going to end. But the question is, can we end it sooner rather than later with less suffering than, going forward?
President Zelensky has repeatedly said that these may be his final days. If Russia kills him, what will be the consequence? And are you working on a contingency plan to support a Ukrainian government without him at the helm?
The leadership that the President Zelensky has shown, the entire government has shown, is remarkable. They've been the embodiment of this incredibly brave Ukrainian people. I was just a day ago in Ukraine, at least about 15 feet into Ukraine, with my friend and colleague, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Dmytro Kuleba. The Ukrainians have plans in place that I'm not going to talk about or get into any details on to make sure that there is what we would call continuity of government, one way or another. And let me leave it at that.
I also want to ask you about another massive diplomatic undertaking, and this is the attempt to negotiate a deal to put a cap on Iran's nuclear program. Yesterday, Russia's top diplomat, Sergei Lavrov, said he wants you to personally give him a written guarantee of exemptions from sanctions in order to keep cooperation on the nuclear deal. Are you giving him that? Is the entire Iran deal at risk?
The sanctions that are being put in place and that have been put in place on Russia have nothing to do with the Iran nuclear deal and the prospects of getting back into that agreement. These things are totally different and are not in any way linked together. So I think that's irrelevant. It's also in Russia's interest, irrespective of anything else, for Iran not to be able to have a nuclear weapon or have the capacity to produce a weapon on very, very short order. That interest remains, again, irrespective of where we are in our relationship with Russia as a result of its aggression in Ukraine.
What are the prospects for that deal? And also two other aspects here, the American hostages that are being held by Iran right now. And do you see the prospect for Iran agreeing to stop threatening people on U.S. soil like they did a journalist living in New York, like they have threatened your predecessor, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo?
We've made real progress in recent weeks on getting back to reimplementation of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, and I think we're close. But there are a couple of very challenging remaining issues, and nothing's done until everything's done. And so, unless we're able to resolve a couple of outstanding issues, then we don't get back to the deal. But we're working on it right now. It is really coming down to whether we can resolve a couple of outstanding issues. If we can, we'll get back into the deal. If we can't, we won't.
On those specific issues of stopping threats against those on U.S. soil and on releasing hostages, are those two demands?
We're going to continue to do everything we possibly can to get detained Americans, arbitrarily detained Americans home, whether it's Iran or anywhere else. And that's something we're working, again, every single day. When it comes to threats that Iran is making, when it comes to actions that it's taken outside of the nuclear area, including activities in the region, in the Middle East, that are threatening to us, threatening to allies and partners. Again, irrespective of whether we get back into the deal or not, we will stand and act against those every single day. We were very clear when we were in the deal originally that nothing about the deal prevents us from taking action against Iran when it's engaged in actions that threaten us, threaten our allies and partners. That will very much continue.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Margaret. Good to be with you.
We begin with NBC's Richard Engel again for us in Kyiv. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Ukrainian officials are expressing frustration. As you know, they've been calling for a no-fly zone. They have been also calling for more aircraft to protect the skies, in particular Soviet-era aircraft that Ukrainian pilots already know how to fly. And it looked like there was a potential deal yesterday when Poland said it would give Ukraine all of its MiG-29s, sending them first to a U.S. airbase in Germany. But the Pentagon said no, that was too close to direct military involvement, and now the deal appears to be off. And Ukraine's President Zelensky said that this is no time for indecision, that they need the planes now to stop the Russian offensive.
Russian troops are trying to grind out a victory by beating Ukrainian towns and cities into submission. But so far, all that Russia is doing successfully is killing Ukrainian troops and innocents. At an intensive care unit in Kiev this morning, a doctor showed us the wards. The windows all covered to prevent sniper fire. In every room, a victim of Russian fire. All civilians. A man shot in the leg, another whose house was bombed. He was trapped under the rubble for 2 days and just arrived here this morning.
Vladimir Putin says that the Russian army is not bombing civilians, that no civilians are being hurt. It's a lie.
Saints of God. Was Tony Blinken trying to bait Russia in attacking a NATO ally by saying that a green light was given to Poland to provide aircraft or Su-29 MiGs in the defense of Ukraine? What was he thinking? By doing so, they could declare Article 5 and enter the war collectively as NATO. Was that the plan? If this was miscommunication on the part of the White House administration, then that was grossly incompetent and very dangerous. Perhaps it was both. We cannot forget what happened in Afghanistan. There's a lot of smokescreen here we are not privy to. Question everything and use discernment the Lord blessed us with as Christians. Okay? At this point, we should be all saying, we smell a rat. Something is not right. Something isn't right.
Yamiche, I want to play something what President Biden said at the retreat earlier today. Let's play that soundbite.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III, okay? Let's get it straight here, guys.
What's interesting about the comment, he's not saying it's not going to happen. He just wants, it sounds like he was sending a message to Congress, guys, understand what you're calling for.
Because you are afraid. Because NATO is not willing to defend. Because NATO is afraid of a World War III, but it is already started. And these are Ukrainian children who are there taking the hit. You're talking about more sanctions, Prime Minister, but Roman Abramovich is not sanctioned. He's in London. His children are not in the bombardments. His children are there in London. Putin's children are in Netherlands, in Germany, in mansions. Where are all these mansions seized? I don't see that. I see that my family members, that my team members are saying that we are crying. We don't know where to run. This is what is happening, Prime Minister.
Well, thank you very much for your questions, and thank you for getting here today. I'm glad that you have been able to get here. And look, I just want to say that I'm acutely conscious that there is not enough that we can do as the UK government to help in the way that you want. And I've got to be honest about that.
You know, after President Zelensky spoke Saturday, I compared him to Winston Churchill during the Blitz. And I just want to take 2 lines from what he said to the British Parliament today. We will fight till the end at sea, in the air. We will fight in our land for whatever, in the forest, in the fields. He is clearly channeling Churchill. And I think what we in the West have to remind ourselves is we were late to arrive to the final point of what we need to do in the Second World War, and perhaps we're there now. They weren't arguing just for their own country. They were fighting and arguing for the principles of democracy that are at risk here. We are all, in a very large extent, at war with Putin now. He's declared war on us through previous cyber attacks and what we are seeing here. We have to ask ourselves, as General Breedlove said today in talking about this, at what line do the Russians have to cross for us to do? Can we watch Chicago's sister city, Kyiv, that we have such a close relationship, get wiped out as humanitarian lines are shelled? So I think we need to act. And by the way, I don't know that there's any such thing as a limited no-fly zone or even a no-fly zone. It's NATO and Russian jets fighting each other, killing Russians.
Saints of God Almighty, how long will the Russians allow this blunder to occur? You have NATO AWACS providing intelligence of Russian armory positions and troops via sat phones to Kiev. Also, the Russians know that NATO is supplying the Ukrainians 11 to 12 miles from the Polish border, where armament is being brought in and then spread throughout the country to resupply the Ukrainians. How long will they allow this to occur? Okay? Interestingly enough, while I'm editing this video, about an hour ago, I saw a report that Russia followed through on its promise to bomb any armament coming into Ukraine to resupply Ukraine. Approximately 11 to 12 miles, I believe, it's 11 to 12 miles from the Polish border. There was a NATO training base there, and they followed through and bombed it. Okay? That's what you call checkmate. And Vladimir Putin sending a message to the NATO alliance. Your move. Okay? That's what that was. That was a shot across the bow. And what it is, they're trying to tidy this up with a nice little blue and yellow bow to keep it all within the country of Ukraine by sending as much armament and money to Ukraine to prop them up. But they're not going to be successful. They're not. This will spread beyond Ukraine. Why? Because the Bible prophesied of the red horse rider being released, the second seal of Revelation. This is reminiscent to me of the German U-boats that sank the American warships and commercial ships resupplying Britain during World War II. Only it's being played out over land. Do you see it? We are already at war, guys. Get your house in order. We don't have much time. We don't. If you think that this is just going to be a one-off and move on, it's not. Like my previous video says, slow burn and a swift response. The Chinese will come to the aid of the Russians eventually. That I could promise you. Especially the way that the United States has been talking to China as if China is a child. China has 1.4 billion people. Okay? Enough said.
Breaking news on the war front this morning. Russia has escalated this war in a major way, conducting missile strikes overnight, targeting a base that is 12 miles from Ukraine's border with the NATO ally Poland. That base is also known as the International Peacekeeping and Security Center. It regularly hosts NATO instructors, soldiers, and drills. It's 20 miles northwest of Lviv, which is a city we've been reporting from that has been considered safer, where refugees from central and eastern Ukraine have been fleeing. Many of our reporters have been reporting from there. In fact, we're going to go there very shortly. In this attack overnight, at least 35 people were killed, 134 injured in western Ukraine near the NATO border. Notably, it's part of a pipeline which NATO and other foreign countries use to funnel weapons and other aid into Ukraine, a pipeline which Russia said yesterday was fair game to attack. And those attacks.
Saints of God, let us not be under any delusion. Let us shatter these smoke and mirrors that the mainstream media and the leaders of the world, your prime minister and presidents, are telling you lies. We are already in a war. We have provided armament to Ukraine as a whole. And if you don't believe that we're in a war, over 141 countries voted against Russia in the UN Council to admonish Russia and condemn them. I believe only 5 abstained from not voting, like India, China, and Russia, of course, itself, and so forth. Okay? In the UAE, I believe, and a couple others. But at the end of the day, it was 141 countries. Not to mention, NATO is comprised of 30 countries to include the United States. So we are at war already. That's called a world war, a confrontation between the East and the West, and lines have been drawn, and people have picked sides. Do you not see that? So what you need to do now as a Christian, a believer in Yeshua, is get your spiritual house in order with him first. Get your family, be honest with them what is coming down the pike. And then work together to get water, food prepared for long-term storage that it will last. Okay? You're going to need blankets for warmth, where you be able to keep warm. Why? Because when these nuclear bombs go off, and it will be a plethora of bombs falling, a myriad of bombs falling on both sides, and it's going to cause a nuclear winter. The Bible says we won't be able to see the sun and the moon. Okay? So this is not a joke anymore. For those scoffers who still think that the Bible and the words of God are a fairy tale and it's a fantasy, well, look at your gas price. Okay? Look at what they just did to the entire nation of Russia. Do you know how big and vast Russia is as far as a landmass? And they just shut down an entire country off the SWIFT system, payment system, and are choking them slowly to death. Do you think that Vladimir Putin is going to allow this to happen? And now it's being said that Jake Sullivan is going to go and meet his counterpart in China, in Rome, to warn the Chinese not to provide economic assistance or military armament assistance to Russia. So we're going to talk down to China like they're a child. There are children. This is asinine. And threaten them with sanctions like they're doing with Russia. Do you think those two giant nations are going to allow that to happen to them? There's a speech that Xi Jinping made in the square and said that they will not be enslaved by anyone. And anyone who comes up against China will be smashed against 1.43 billion people of the Iron Wall of China. Enough said. My grandma used to say, if it acts like a duck and quacks like a duck, it ain't coinkydink or coincidental. Here is Donald Duck saying, here is Babylon. Let's read Jeremiah 51:12. Set up the standard upon the wall of Babylon. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes, for the Lord had both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. Jeremiah 51:13. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Note, the U.S. sits on the Atlantic, Pacific, Gulf of Mexico oceans, and the Great Lakes collectively, hence many waters. Isaiah 47:1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. She is called a virgin daughter because there has never been an all-out war conflict on American soil in modern times. In the early 1940s, Hawaii, from World War II, yes, bought the continental United States? No, but that's about to change. This will be the end result. When it's all said and done, there will be no more proxy wars. It's going to be direct confrontation. As decimated as the buildings in Ukraine look, the same is going to occur in America and the various nations around the world. It's going to happen. This is the Lord's word. It will happen. Okay? So prepare yourselves and be truthful to your family, especially your kids, on what is coming. Okay? All right.
Have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Had it not been told you from the beginning? Have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple. Set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Prepare the ambushes. For the Lord hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. The Lord of hosts hath sworn by himself, saying, Surely I will fill thee with men as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee.
And joining me now, NBC News correspondent Josh Lederman live from Poland. Josh, you've been reporting on this development that Russia has asked China for military equipment. That would certainly open all kinds of other questions, both for the U.S., its involvement, certainly NATO countries. What more can you tell us about what you have learned on this front?
Well, from the very beginning of this conflict, Eamon, the U.S. has been concerned that if anyone was going to throw a lifeline to President Putin, it was going to be China, both in terms of the military aspect and also the economic aspect. We've seen the Russians and the Chinese grow closer to each other in the last several weeks. And in fact, some U.S. officials have said on the record that they believe that President Putin told the Chinese leader, President Xi, in advance about his plans to invade Ukraine, something that the Chinese have disputed. But now 3 U.S. officials telling me that the U.S. believes Russia has asked China for military equipment and support since it launched this invasion, which has raised real questions about why Russia, a massive military power, is in the position of needing to turn to outside countries for help just a few weeks into an invasion that by a lot of indications, Russia thought was going to be a lot more successful, a lot more quickly than it has been. Now, as you pointed out, we don't know exactly what kind of equipment the Russians have asked for. We don't know if the Chinese have given it to them, but we do know that the U.S. is working very hard right now to try to drive a wedge between China and Russia. And the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, when he meets tomorrow in Rome with his counterpart, with a senior Chinese diplomat, is expected not only to emphasize the risks to China in aiding Russia militarily, but also the risks to China if it helps Russia evade sanctions or absorb the blow by sanctions, essentially give economic assistance that could help Russia more effectively withstand the massive economic penalties that the West has been imposing on Russia for its invasion in Ukraine. One of the arguments he's expected to make is that, look, China talks a big game about respecting territorial sovereignty and integrity and how they don't want other people telling them how to do their business. The U.S. expected to tell China that it is going to lose credibility on that front if it not only looks the other way, but actively helps Russia as it violates the sovereignty of one of its neighbors and continues with that invasion. The U.S. also expected to tell China that it will face its own economic isolation and potentially sanctions itself if it is complicit in assisting Putin militarily or economically. Amen.
All right, NBC's Josh Lederman live in Poland with some significant reporting this evening. Josh, thank you.
The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, His Highness, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates, and the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain will now sign the Abraham Accords. They will each sign 4 copies, 1 in English, 1 in Hebrew, and 2 in Arabic.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate.
When all the wars have been fought, and the dust has been settled, Donald Trump will be re-elected in the year 2025. In January 20th, the year 2025, Donald Trump will assume the seat of the Antichrist, of the devil. In Daniel, it says, in his estate. Whose estate is Daniel talking about? Or should I say God talking about through the prophet Daniel? It is the devil's estate, meaning where the devil dwells. It is the presidency of the United States, and every president that sat in that seat assumed Satan's seat in his estate. Donald Trump will resume the presidency of the United States because it is his appointed time. In that same year, 2025, I strongly believe that Donald Trump will attack Iran. With no Iran around, then he's able to solidify or strengthen, like Daniel says in the book of Daniel, the prophet. He said he will strengthen the covenant or confirm by a period of 1 week or 7 years. 1 times 7 or 1 times or 1 week of prophetic years is 7 years. Okay? He will confirm this covenant called the Abrahamic Accords in the year 2026. Then we will go into the final 7 years. And in the midst of the week, and that is the year 2029 going into 2030, somewhere around there. It is said that the asteroid Apophis is to visit our solar system in the year 2029. I believe it's April 2029. And I strongly believe that this is the fifth trumpet. This will be the middle of the week. He will break the covenant 30 days after. So the middle of the week will be 1,260 days. 30 days after that, 1,290 days, the abomination of desolation will be set up, and the death decree will be issued by the false prophet, and the world told to make a image of the beast and to worship it by the false prophet, because he will be released when this asteroid impacts the earth. It will be worse than La Palma, because it's supposed to darken the sky and release locusts, demonic locusts, upon the earth. This is what's prophesied to come. This is how close we are. Now you see. Don't believe me. What I'm saying to you is the words of God. Go read the Bible and you will see. Okay? Don't believe me. Believe God. I just put it in my own words. But you need to be a Berean and read the Bible for yourself, and you'll see what I'm saying is absolutely true.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
Number 8, we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system. Approximately half of new illegal immigrants came on temporary visas and then never, ever left. Why should they? Nobody's telling them to leave. Stay as long as you want. We'll take care.
Can you say if the United States, can you say if the U.S. is committed to provide...
This is an order that is essentially a starting place for the U.S. government in terms of how it's going to approach cryptocurrency on a macro level, and not just a one-off case, and not just one agency's approach. The order itself does not really implement something particularly new that is going to happen and that people need to do right away. But I think it is a sign, that crypto is here to stay, that regulations, will be coming. There are a lot of requirements in this order for the various departments in the U.S. government to report back. And just given the breadth of this order, I would bet that we're going to see more orders in the future with particular guidance. The U.S. dollar is obviously the preferred method of exchange throughout the world. That our economy would consider also adding a digital dollar, I think, is a huge endorsement to the technology, to the viability of blockchain, which has so many uses, and so I think it's perhaps the most significant part of this order. When the President of the United States is issuing a detailed executive order about cryptocurrency, I think that is a moment that the community celebrates, because it really shows, that cryptocurrency is mainstream. It's here to stay.
said it's Trump's trade war. This isn't my trade war. This is a trade war that should have taken place a long time ago by a lot of other presidents. Over the last 5 or 6 years, China's made $500 billion. $500 billion. Ripped it out of the United States. And not only that, if you take a look, intellectual property theft, add that to it, and add a lot of other things to it. So somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China. I'm taking on China on trade. And you know what? We're winning because we're the piggy bank. We're the one that all these countries, including the European Union, wants to rob and takes advantage of. European Union, $200 billion. China, more than $500 billion. Sorry.
Now, I know Mo spoke, but come up and say just a quick word, Mo. He's doing very poorly in the polls. He's only up at about 90%. Come on, Mo.
Thank you, Mr. President and future President of the United States of America. I'm pleased to announce the second coming of President Donald J. Trump.
Go get him. I'll do my best. Thank you. Go get him, Mo. I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
Jewish Americans are one of the most reliable blue voters in the entire country. 79%, 80% voted Democrat in the 2018 midterm. So Trump is saying that the overwhelming percentage of Jews in America are disloyal, which could also have severely anti-Semitic undertones and connotations. And he didn't stop there. He quoted conservative conspiracy theorists, basically commentator Wayne Allen Root, on Twitter this morning. He is the best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people in Israel love him like he's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God. So Trump copy and pasted that, put that into a tweet. The president of the United States is calling himself the king of Israel. He's calling other people anti-Semitic at the same time, while he's openly questioning an overwhelming majority of Jewish Americans' loyalty, which is, again, an old anti-Semitic trope for not supporting the king of Israel, him.
Now, saints, look at this. This is blasphemy against God. Somebody posted this in Georgia on a billboard, and the community, the pastors complained, and eventually was taken down. But look what it says. Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. Joint heirs. Romans 8:17. And that's even the wrong scripture that's quoted. Okay? That's the wrong scripture. But nevertheless, it was posted. This is blasphemy. And I'm trying to show you guys that this is the man. Yet there are a lot of people still supporting this man, not knowing that this man is the Antichrist that the Bible speaks of. He is, guys, but y'all still don't believe. Guys, this is amazing to me. The secular world is calling for, saying, saving Ukraine, looking for a world leader to stand up. Okay? They're saying that the world has rallied behind a Churchillian figure of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in defense of the country. But they are crying for a world leader who can intervene and cause peace and cause Putin to stand down from the atrocities and the aggression that he's prosecuting in Ukraine. But they're looking for a world leader, and they're going to find him. In fact, he's already here. And this is the perfect setup. Because, see, Putin and Trump get along. They're cut from the same cloth. Okay? Saints, this is amazing. Again, while editing the video, I was clicking through and found this 60-minute clip of what you see on the screen, the second coming of Donald Trump. I can tell you that that cannot be nothing but the Holy Spirit, okay? Because this is exactly what I was talking about. An hour ago, this popped up, okay? Donald Trump is cut from the same cloth as Putin, and they get along very well. When he comes back in office, he will overturn everything that Biden has done. The sanctions and everything, they will all go away, and Putin's going to land on his feet like a cat, as if it never happened. And this is going to allow him to consolidate his power. Remember, it says he goes out conquering to conquer to produce this one world government. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Now you see how the cards are being shifted in his favor to make this happen via the powers of his father, Satan, and the devil himself, the father of lies, which Trump lies incessantly. Okay? Him and Putin get along very well. You will see this play out. Okay? This is amazing to me. But after this, there's going to be a 20-minute or so clip of this video that I want you to watch. It is going to be against Trump. However, what I want to show you is the secular view of what the Bible says. That there's a false person coming pretending to be Christ. The second coming. That's blasphemy. And I will repeat that over and over again. But here it is in your face. This is a major mainstream media outlet, 60 Minutes, that people watch. I've been watching 60 Minutes when I was a child. A so-called reputable mainstream media outlet. And here it is. That this is what the world is calling for. Okay? So just watch it and you will see. All right? And it could be that China and Russia gets put into this D10. It may not be India, South Korea, or Australia. Who knows? But right now, that's what stands. That's what they're calling for. But things can change overnight rapidly. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you start watching the news. It's going to be picture within a picture, breaking news after breaking news.
Not everyone in the West thinks Vladimir Putin is a dangerous megalomaniac. No less than former US President Donald Trump has called the man responsible for so much death and destruction in Ukraine a genius. Now, of course, Trump has made a career out of being unorthodox. And the more unpredictable he is, it seems, the more his supporters love him. So much so, Trump is now seriously considering another tilt at the White House. And if you thought it was a wild ride last time he was leader of the free world, you ain't seen nothing yet. If there's one thing Donald Trump has taught the world about US politics, it's that definitions of fact and fiction are not black and white.
The big lie is a lot of bullshit. That's what it is.
In the aftermath of the 2020 presidential election, he's blurred the lines between defeat and victory so successfully, polls now say he's convinced more Americans than ever that grinners are the real winners.
We will not bend, we will not break, we will not yield, we will never give in, we will never give up.
And if anyone dares disagree with Trump's rewriting of history, they're forever damned by his army of blindingly loyal followers.
He's a great president, and he's going to do great things.
To be a Trump supporter, as you are, do you have to believe in the big lie that the election was stolen? Is that a prerequisite?
It's almost comical the way the media is portraying what happened in our election. You're, thousands of miles away. You really have no idea what happened in our election.
These days, Kari Lake is the former Commander-in-Chief's supporter-in-chief. And, as you'll see...
well, no, I've already told you we're done. Thank you so much.
Along with eulogising Trump, she likes nothing more than giving annoying reporters free character assessments.
I don't live in Australia. Are you actually a respectable journalist there, or are you kind of considered a joke?
More of Kari Lake later. But first, a different take on why Donald Trump is plotting to once again stride the corridors of power.
This is a man with a following of millions. We are witnessing, quite literally, the biggest cult phenomenon I think we've ever witnessed in Western history, is the phenomenon of people following an autocratic leader like Donald Trump.
It probably doesn't sound like it, but Miles Taylor is a lifelong Republican. He was a national security advisor under President George W. Bush, and also worked for the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security. But far from praising his former boss, he fears him. What do you think is at stake for America if Trump runs for presidency in 2024?
I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the prospect of a second Donald Trump term is a threat to our lives, our livelihoods, and our way of life. I think if Trump runs again, it will so rip this country apart, it will be a public safety threat.
Donald Trump has hinted, but hasn't yet confirmed, a tilt at the White House in 2024. Miles Taylor knows firsthand, though, that if he does, and is successful, the free world will see a very different style of leader.
When I worked in that administration, there was no one that Donald Trump saw more like him around the world than autocrats. He would have rather been friends with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, President Xi in China, and Vladimir Putin in Russia than any Western democratic leader.
You've been in the Situation Room while he's been talking about these autocrats, the likes of Xi and Putin and Kim Jong-un. Why is he drawn to these people? What does he say?
He's drawn to these people because he wants to be like them. Donald Trump was immensely disappointed by something when he became president of the United States. It was that he didn't have the power that he thought he did. It was that he couldn't just will things into existence. So frankly, at its core, it was jealousy. He was jealous of Vladimir Putin and Xi in China because he wanted to be able to do what they could do, which was whatever they wanted.
And I said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful.
For the critics, there could be no better proof of the dangers of Donald Trump than 3 weeks ago, when he went on American radio to talk about Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. His views couldn't have been clearer or more controversial.
I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. That's the strongest peace force. We could use that on our southern border. Here's a guy who's very savvy. I know him very well, very, very well.
He's extraordinarily dangerous. He's a demagogue.
Canadian Professor Thomas Homer Dixon is a political scientist and conflict specialist. He says Trump's refusal to accept Joe Biden won the last election has now forever damaged American politics. Do you think it's fair to call Donald Trump an extremist?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a man who seems to have no respect for or even comprehension of democracy. I mean, he lost the election. And immediately after the election, he started to mobilize his forces to try to steal it, to try to block the legitimate political result.
Professor Dixon doesn't hold back. He says since Trump lost the election, he's turned against democracy and has done everything in his power to convince his millions of supporters their electoral system is rigged.
The American people deserve answers. The January 6th rally was a protest against a crooked election carried out by unhinged Democrats, big tech, and working with the fake news media, all working together to defeat Republicans and your favorite president, me.
From the moment he lost, Donald Trump said he didn't.
Last year we had a rigged election and the proof is all over the place.
And even when US judges threw out more than 50 lawsuits challenging the election result because there wasn't any evidence, Trump still maintained he was the winner.
And we won twice, and we did better the second time.
With so many supporters now in tow, the fear is if Trump runs again for the Oval Office, what happens if he doesn't get the outcome he wants?
Somewhere around 70% of the Republican members of the Republican Party believe that the election was stolen. That really corrodes the underlying institutions of democracy in the country. It means that for those Republicans that it's very likely that they will refuse to accept the result of any election in the future where their candidate doesn't win. And you can't run a democracy when people are taking that kind of position.
If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
What did you think of that statement?
Well, I heard other Republicans saying that too. They picked up on his cue, I'm sure. That's very disturbing.
Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson was former Secretary of State Colin Powell's Chief of Staff. He's outraged the perpetrators of last year's January 6 insurrection could ever be forgiven. So what's the message that he's sending?
He's saying, if there's anything you do following me that is a violation of the law, quote unquote, I'll take care of that, either through a presidential pardon or I won't allow the case to be prosecuted against you.
But behind the scenes, this is just one of the ways Trump is ensuring if he runs, he wins.
And we will make America great again.
His planning also includes a concerted effort to put his supporters in key electoral positions at a state level now, so they're in place early for the 2024 election.
Yeah, there's a massive mobilization across the country by Republican operatives in all of the swing states that Trump needs to win, and decisively, where Democrats might win, but they want to be able to overturn the election results if that should happen. There's a deliberate effort by the Republican Party to capture the electoral machinery.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Trump-endorsed candidate Kari Lake.
But of all the weapons in Trump's re-election arsenal, the most formidable could well be this take-no-prisoners politician. Her name is Kari Lake. And as you're about to see, you cross her at your own peril.
You're trying to twist this interview and trying to make me look bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Trump-endorsed candidate for governor of the great state of Arizona, Kari Lake.
One-time Fox News host, Kari Lake, wants to be the next governor of Arizona.
I'm ready to take a sledgehammer.
These TV-smashing ads have given her campaign a boost, but not nearly as much as being endorsed as the Republican nominee by Donald Trump.
Do you guys love him as much as I love him?
It's not difficult to see why he likes her.
I think he's a great president. I think he's one of the best presidents we've ever had, and I think he will be back. I think he will win in 2024, and he will come back with a vengeance.
The outgoing Republican governor in Arizona is Doug Ducey. He's out of favor because he defied Trump's bullying at the last election. Instead of cheating, he played by the rules and declared the result in his state that went Joe Biden's way was a fair one. But Kari Lake reckons that's a nonsense.
Well, considering how much already at the time information we had about serious irregularities and problems with the election, I would not have certified it right then. Wasn't it great to hear from President Trump?
If you hadn't worked it out already, Kari Lake couldn't be more in tune with Donald Trump.
Do not believe a word that the corrupt media says, that they're liars, and frankly, I think they're criminal. Yeah, they should be. I mean, some of them probably should be locked up.
It's a toss-up who she loathes more, journalists or the officials she says stole the election from Trump by declaring Biden the winner.
Anybody who was involved in that corrupt, shady, shoddy election of 2020, lock them up.
The point is, on a broad scope, on a very broad scale, right across the United States, you've had election officials, you've had court officials, you've had judges look at this.
They've not looked at the evidence. They've not looked at the evidence.
There's been no evidence. No evidence has been presented in a single court of law in your country that has proved there's election fraud. I mean, if that is true, if it was stolen, as you say, why is there no evidence a year down the track?
All of the past cases that have been heard in court, none of the evidence was presented. We now have the evidence from the forensic audit. The forensic audit is evidence, and it can be presented in a court of law, and I hope it will be. People broke laws. They broke election laws here. They broke state laws here, and laws were broken. And it's really rich to have somebody from Australia coming here trying to tell us how our elections were run.
I'm not trying to tell you how to run your voting system. I'm just trying to get a handle on how you view it. I mean, obviously, it's clear that what you're implying is that if you win, then it'll be fair. But if you lose,
no, that's not what I'm implying. That's not what I'm implying.
If you lose, it'll be rigged.
No, I just told you, Liam, that we have lawmakers currently at the moment, probably at this very moment, working hard to put forth legislation to try to make our elections more fair. What we're doing is not just about the 2020 election, 2022. We're trying to make our elections fair so that going forward, every voter in Arizona, whether they be Democrat, whether they be independent or Republican, can feel good that the election was honest.
Kari Lake won't budge an inch. The system's broken and must be fixed. And millions of Americans agree with her, including an increasing number of US servicemen and women. It's a frightening scenario for Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, General Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff. How many do you think in the military really believe Trump's stance that the election was stolen?
I think I'm probably safe in saying somewhere from a quarter to a third.
That's a big number. That equates to a lot of people.
It does.
In fact, last year, 120 retired high-ranking military officers, generals and admirals signed an open letter declaring Joe Biden had stolen the election. Colonel Lawrence says this could signal a split in the military at the next election, with those supporting Trump going their own way.
It concerns me, and it concerns the flag officers, admirals, generals that I still know and still communicate with. And I suspect, and I almost can say I know, it concerns General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's made it quite clear that it concerns him. And it should. It should, because we're looking at what one person said to me the other day. The most important instrument in most is the military. Which way does the military go? The people with the guns, which way do they turn? And do they fall apart themselves and add to the melee?
USA! 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 It's a worrying thought in an already violent country, where scenes like the attack on the Capitol building in Washington seem to be applauded by as many people as condemned it. We saw lots and lots of very confronting pictures over many days as they replayed various angles on it. On the January 6th riots, insurrections, call it what you like. I mean, how did you see that? How do you view the events of the 6th of January at the Capitol?
Well, that really doesn't have anything to do with being governor of Arizona. I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with that, sir.
Well, your man Donald.
It's always the conspiracy theorists in the media, which I'm.
Well, that's not true.
I'm counting you as.
Well, that's not true at all. That's not true at all.
You've called our election.
Let's be fair on this. Your man Donald.
You've called our election the big lie.
Your man
You've
Donald
called-
brought it up. Your man Donald said only
Why
a
would
few...
you say that, sir?
What?
Your man Donald?
Well, he is. I mean, he's endorsed you personally. He said a few days ago that those people at the Capitol should be pardoned. They should all be pardoned. Do you think they should be pardoned?
I'm still amazed that you say your man Donald. That's just so disrespectful.
Well, why would it be? He's endorsed you. You have his personal endorsement.
It's just the flippant attitude. It's obvious that you've come into this. It's obvious you've come into this interview and you don't like President Donald Trump.
Kari.
It's obvious.
Well, do you think they should be pardoned? Do you think they should be pardoned?
I have no say in that. I'm running for governor. This isn't something a governor does. You're trying to twist this interview and trying to make me look bad.
You're a Republican. He's the Republican leader.
What I don't like is that people are being held in prison without being charged. That's un-American. Maybe they get away with that stuff in Australia. Perhaps in Australia, because you've given your rights away, you melted down all of your guns, and you guys have no freedom, that you find that okay. But here in America, we do things differently. We have something called the U.S. Constitution, and we have rights.
So we'd be better off having more guns here. I mean, what? You would be better off...
Yeah, you would. You absolutely would, sir. You absolutely would. I feel so sorry for the people in Australia. Have no power. The only thing keeping us from being Australia right now is our Second Amendment. And we will never, ever let that go. Mark my words. What we saw happening in Australia, where you have internment camps and people are being forced, if they've encountered anybody with COVID, to be locked into a quarantine camp, is the most horrifying thing I think I've ever seen a government do. It's frightening. And if you can't see that, I feel sorry for you.
Would it have been better?
This is our last question, Liam. We have to run, but thank you for your time.
Just answer me this one question. One more question, Kari.
Well, no, I've already told you we're done. Thank you so much. That guy's a complete nut. Seriously, a complete insane person.
It's here we need to tread carefully. Kari Lake and her many supporters don't tolerate differences of opinion. And the more excitable among them often resort to targeting opponents with vile abuse. Longtime Republican and now Trump enemy, Miles Taylor, lives with the threat of violence on a daily basis. He has personal security and moves homes regularly.
Just 2 days ago, among many other hate messages, and I'll bleep it for you, shut your effing mouth about Trump or pay the price. How did that person get my phone number? Why did that person feel compelled to reach out to me? Why did they feel compelled to threaten me? Because that's the phenomenon. And that's the phenomenon we're witnessing in the United States, is an explosion of political violence.
Worryingly, Miles Taylor may be right. But in the spirit of democracy, I think Kari Lake deserves the last word.
Liam, it was a pleasure meeting you. This has just become comical. I'm leaving. Actually, thank you for giving me a good laugh, because you actually make some of the crazy reporters and people at CNN look almost respectable. So thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kari. It's been a pleasure.
You guys know what this represents? Well, maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm is
We have the world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Give us a hint on your answers.
Thank you, everybody.
Saints, you're looking at the current proposal based on the flags of the various countries, the 10-Nation Alliance. Okay? Donald Trump's administration proposal to expand the G7 into a larger group of democracies that will be known as the D10, with the addition of Australia, India, and South Korea. This is the current proposal. This could change when Donald Trump comes back in office, because he wanted Russia to be back under the fold of the G8. It was formerly known as the G8. And then Russia was kicked out because of the invasion of Georgia and Crimea. Under the Obama administration, he was kicked out as punishment. But I promise you, when Donald Trump comes back, again, he's going to turn all of these sanctions and everything else up on his head. And he is going to do what he wants to do. That's what the Bible, the willful king, he's going to do what he wants, what he wants to do. He's demonstrated that in office already, that he does his own thing. He does things differently. He will be diverse, different. This beast system, this 10 nations, is going to be different from anything that we have ever seen before. Okay? That's why in Revelation it says, who can make war with the beast when he forms this 10-nation alliance? And with all these countries with their military, who's going to want to come up against this alliance, this conglomerate of nations, not just monetary, but militarily? Do you see now? This is what the Bible spoke of, and they are talking about it. And it's only a matter of time before it manifests. And it's not too far in the distant future. The key is, when you see this 10-nation alliance form, know that the destruction, the total destruction of America is right around the corner. Because God said he has put it in their hearts to give unto the beast their dominion, their kingdom unto him, until his words are accomplished. And then after that, they will hate the whore, America, and burn her flesh with fire. And only nuclear bombs could do that. That's what's going to happen. Okay? Now you see for yourself that prophecy is being fulfilled. You may think slowly. To me, it's like at a rapid pace. It's happening exponentially, especially since the last 2 years, since the beginning of the pandemic. Okay? All right. The 10 kings and the harlot. Revelation chapter 17, verses 16 to 18. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. That's nuclear weapons. Revelation 17:17. For God had put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Revelation 17, verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And when it says it reigneth over the kings of the earth, this is true. Look what the United States and the NATO countries have done to Russia. Russia is a huge country. They have taken them off the SWIFT system and administered punishing sanctions, not only to Vladimir Putin's administration, but also to the oligarchs and to the people of Russia. Some of them are innocent as to what's happening to them, but because they live in Russia under Gog, right, of Magog, right, they're receiving this punishment because of Putin's actions and his administration's behavior. So you can see how it says that great city rules over all the kings of the earth. It causes them to administer this punishing sanctions on a very vast and large nation as Russia. So now you see who Babylon is. If you didn't know, look what they did to Russia with the SWIFT system. Exactly. There's no more denying this. Saints, it's a bear trap. I say again, it's a bear trap. The Russian bear with China and Iran are laying a trap for the United States. But better yet, it's a snare being set by the Lord. So while America is trying to bait Russia into a war, as you can see, The Lord is setting a snare, a trap for Babylon. Let's read it and back it up with scripture. Jeremiah 50:22-24. A sound of a battle is in the land, and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? I have laid a snare for thee. Let me read it again. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. It is a surprise attack, invasion. Thou was not aware. Thou art found and also caught. What were they found and caught in? What did Babylon do for these 10 nations to come against her? Because thou hast striven against the Lord. Let me read that last verse one more time. I have laid a snare for thee. It's a trap. And thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. With all your radar and early warning system, you were not aware. Thou art found and also caught. What were you caught doing, Babylon? Because thou hast striven against the Lord. That's the reason for the trap. Don't wake up the Russian bear. He does tend to get riled. You called me? Notice on the feet of the eagle, it has the ball and chain of NATO or OTAN, the defensive alliance. And then on the other feet, you have 666. So even the secular world is recognizing who Babylon is. Do you see that? And now we having this big tug of war over Ukraine between Russia and the NATO alliance, the United States. What's that all about? Why are they throwing so much money at Ukraine and armament? I'm not saying that they don't need to be defended or that people aren't dying, innocent people, but something else is going on that we are not aware of. And they're not telling the truth. And that's what I'm getting at. Okay? This is hypocrisy at best. The Senate passes bill to avert shutdown, extend $14 billion in Ukrainian aid. Congressional Democrats and Republicans took the final step Thursday night to approve roughly $14 billion in humanitarian, military, and economic assistance to Ukraine, part of a sweeping spending package that funds the federal government and staves off a looming shutdown that would have occurred at the end of the week. So all of a sudden, congressional Democrats and Republicans can work together in the House and the Senate to pass a sweeping bill, but they cannot work together to balance the budget or take care of matters concerning the home front. I remember when the pandemic was in its so-called devastating phase that they argued and mulled over money to give to regular American citizens, the common people. They bickered over it, how much was being given out, but look how much they gave out. $14 billion. They can't take care of anything here on the home front, but they can rush and give money. They can rush stuff and give money overseas, but not at home. Do you not see a problem with that? Do you not see that there's something else going on? That they're throwing the kitchen sink at Ukraine because something took place in that country that they don't want people to know? And if they can contain it in Ukraine, let it be there. Something else is going on. The red flag should be going up in y'all heads. Or maybe it's just me. Okay, maybe it's just me. Folks, my fellow saints, what you're looking at is a website with the address above where you can glean data and to see for yourself where politicians are receiving donations from Pfizer in the amount of $1.3 million plus to the various congresswomen, congressmen, and state senators. Not only are they receiving donations, they have also used their own personal money and invest into these companies via the stock market and are earning residual funding also. This is a conflict of interest. Do you honestly think that they have your best interest at heart? The likes of Biden and Donald J. Trump, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, McCarthy, and McConnell, and the rest. Wake up, guys. Wake up. Now watch the media also getting their pockets lined by Pfizer. Look at the next video.
Is brought to you by Pfizer. CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Минобороны России продолжает работу по анализу переданных сотрудниками украинских биолабораторий документов о секретной военно-биологической деятельности США на территории Украины. Российскими специалистами войск радиационной, химической и биологической защиты изучены документы о передаче по указанию представителей США, взятых на Украине человеческих биоматериалов, в иностранные государства. Кроме того, особый интерес вызвала детальная информация о реализации США на территории Украины проекта по изучению переноса патогенов, мигрирующими между Украиной и Россией, другими соседними странами, дикими птицами. Согласно документам, американская сторона планировала вести на Украине в 2022 году работы по патогенам птиц, летучих мышей и рептилий с дальнейшим переходом к изучению возможности переноса ими африканской чумы свиней и сибирской язвы. В созданных и финансируемых на Украине биолабораториях, как показывают документы, проводились эксперименты с образцами коронавируса летучих мышей. Целью этих и других финансируемых Пентагоном биологических исследований на Украине являлось создание механизма скрытого распространения смертоносных патогенов. В ближайшее время мы опубликуем очередной пакет полученных от украинских сотрудников биолабораторий документов и представим результаты их.
Well, well, Saints, looky here and look at the number of staff members for Pfizer at the Wuhan location. Over 200 plus staff members in China. Enough said. Saints, this is a bona fide website. Pfizer Ukraine, www.pfizer.ua. I'm just going to read the last two sentences at the bottom. Here we go. For more than 150 years, Pfizer has worked to make a difference for all who rely on us. Pfizer activities in Ukraine aim at exchanging product information with the medical community as well as carrying out pharmaceutical market research, otherwise known as R&D. Okay? This is a bona fide website with the CEO. Her name is Zariana Tilsky. Okay? All right. Okay, this is her LinkedIn profile. And her name again is Zoriana Tislik. I believe I pronounced her name wrong. It's Tislik. Okay? And she is the country's manager, Ukraine, general manager of Pfizer Export Biological Vaccines, the regional officer in Ukraine at Pfizer. Can't make this stuff up. Thanks. Then, through further investigation, I found this PDF document online by Andres Estevez from Florida International University, where Pfizer was investigating about business prospects in Ukraine. Ukraine was used, guys. They were used and abused for the development of biological weapons. Here are some excerpts from this PDF document. Ukraine as an emerging market. From a management point of view, some of the conditions in Ukraine are very important to any business interested in investing in the country. Conditions such as transportation costs, accessibility, taking into account infrastructure like seaports, railways, and airports are important to examine the financial political climate as well as the private sector debt and competition. We now look at some important facts about Ukraine. Ukraine, a former USSR state, is a country located in Eastern Europe with over 45 million people, rich in land and resources. Currently, the population is in decline, according to the data found in the CIA World Factbook website. So basically, they consulted the CIA website with an annual growth rate of minus 0.619% due to debts and immigration. Ukraine possesses a favorable environment for business. The population is literate and it has the infrastructure capabilities to promote any industry, as per the CIA agency, basically Central Intelligence Agency 2011. The country's current inflation rate, according to an article in Bloomberg, is 7.2%, a decline from 9.8% for 2010 and 15.9% for 2009. The country currently enjoys a downward trend in inflation, but attention must be paid to the past years when from 1993 to 1995 there was hyperinflation. Furthermore, there has been a volatile inflation rate in the recent past. Authorities in the country aim to keep the inflation rate controlled below 10% for the second year in a row. The country enjoys fertile plains, temperature, climate, and more than 2,000 miles of coastline in the Black Sea. Ukraine also has several seaports and airports and more than 13,000 miles of railways that provide easy access to Europe and Asia. Ukraine's location could be a favorable strategic location for a foreign base of operations for both the European market and Asian countries, as per the CIA 2011. Ukraine has come a long way since its Soviet era. Communism is over and the government is making every possible effort to grow from the hard lessons the country learned from the decades of communist rule. Just recently, a press release from the United States, it should say from, guys. So basically, a press release from the United States Ukraine Strategic Partnership Commission emphasizes the important role of basically Ukraine. Okay, so as you can see, they were fleshing out to see the prospect of business in Ukraine. Establishing a wholly owned subsidiary. Establishing a base of operation alone can be a scary endeavor for any company and be not only expensive but also risky. Ukraine is a hard market for firms that have no experience in foreign investment. Nevertheless, a multinational like Pfizer has the resources available to successfully accomplish this task. The same resources provided by the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine apply for subsidiaries and should be exploited to the fullest extent. Additionally, a firm considering establishing a base in Ukraine can look at other cities besides Kiev for a possible base of operations. The Healthcare Technologies Resource Guide, a publication of the U.S. Department of Commerce, recommends looking at the following cities: Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, Lviv, Odessa, Zaporizhia, and Kharkiv. And by the way, these are the current cities that the Russians are trying to take. And these are the cities that they said they found biological labs ran by the United States. Approximately 30 plus labs they have found with documents about the development of biological weapons, allegedly. These cities are considered important industrial hubs and are densely populated. Labor costs in Ukraine are below the Western standards, which could mean cheaper labor for companies seeking manufacturing in that country. An interesting fact is that there is a great abundance of skilled labor with a population literacy rate of almost 100%. In other words, very smart people. Pfizer has two real options when it comes to establishing a foreign base of operations. The two strengths of the company, as were mentioned earlier, are R&D, research and development, division, and the consumer products. The company should establish an R&D facility in Ukraine and take advantage of the low cost of labor force. Furthermore, Ukraine has 35% of the population below the poverty rate and an unemployment rate of 8.4%. So establishing a manufacturing facility will benefit both the country because of the labor force required and the company who will enjoy low wage labor as per CIA 2010. Okay, so there you are. The means was to exploit the population. They were skilled labor people, very intelligent people. Most of them probably finished university and so forth. Okay. And so their intent was to exploit the labor costs and plus the location, etc., etc. In conclusion, Pfizer has a profitable investment opportunity in Ukraine. The country has excommunicated communist ideals and has embraced democracy and market economy. In spite of its slow evolution and constant backtracks from government disarray, Ukraine is emerging in the world market as a profitable investment site, especially for Pfizer. Ukraine presents a unique opportunity because of the needs that the country has to stabilize, such as its declining population and health situation. Furthermore, Ukraine has the need for those products that Pfizer has in the market already, which are proven to perform with quality and have good reputation in the market. Ukraine presents a fairly safe investment site for Pfizer to establish a base of operations. The country has institutions that welcome investors and provide them with the safeguards and resources to succeed in their endeavors. Ukraine has countless international and regional treaties that promote free trade with the former Soviet bloc, the European Union, and the United States, including the Trade and Investment Cooperation Agreement. The TICA agreement addresses a wide range of issues that involve trade and investment and strives to facilitate the free flow of goods to, and I guess from Ukraine. Okay. Another page. Let's continue from another page. To promote foreign investment, the DOC 2010, Pfizer has to act quickly to gain market share in Ukraine. Its competitors, especially from Germany, have already strong presence in the country, although their main focus is imports. Pfizer has to have an aggressive market strategy to compete with those first movers. Following this analysis, it is the recommendation of this investigation that Pfizer pursue FDI in Ukraine. The method of FDI should be one of the two suggested in this proposal, with consideration to all the possible consequences mentioned. Pursuing a partnership as a lower investment cost and has been shown to be an easy way of entry into foreign market. Nevertheless, the condition of the market and the possible risk of infringement from local partner make it a less suitable avenue of entry for Pfizer. Given the resources that the company has and those found in the country in the form of labor, raw materials, cost, and need of the product, Pfizer should pursue a greenfield investment to gain market share in Ukraine.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Last question. I am certain that the Russians were looking at their their reserves as a way to buffer sanctions. Do you know how, now that we've sanctioned the central bank along with others, do we have an idea of what percentage of their reserves are frozen or inaccessible to them?
Virtually all of them are now frozen. You notice that the country's been under currency controls for almost 2 weeks now, and the whole point of putting so many of these top 10 banks under sanctions is to make it impossible for them to get access to their cash in hard currency.
Look at this, Saints. This is disingenuous. Marco Rubio, he puts out this tweet, and this is propaganda, what you call false flag. It's a reverse of what he just stated that you just watched that video. He says, if God forbid there are any chemical or biological weapons used or any nuclear incidents in Ukraine, basically I have zero doubt who is behind it. He's saying it will be the Russian. Hashtag Putin's, hashtag Russia. So that way he could prime the masses to say that it was the Russians, because I'm telling you, we as the United States did something in that country. And they're saying that, oh, we didn't have no labs there, remember? And all of a sudden she just admitted that there are labs. Come to find out there are 30 labs. And China comes out and say that the United States has over 336 biological labs in various countries. And in Ukraine, there are at least 30. But they want you to believe this lie. You need to discern and figure it out for yourself and pull up the information, and you will see for yourself that what you're being told on the mainstream media is an absolute lie. Saints of God, as you can see, as per with the pandemic and the inoculation that they tried to give, that they want you to draw a line in the sand, to draw a line somewhere. They want to know whether you're with them or against them. Okay? That is the plan of Satan. And how does he do this? By giving you his mark. Okay? They want you to accept the narrative or else. Remember? Accept the narrative, accept the solution. The Hegelian dialect, which is problem, reaction, solution. And accept the narrative and accept what we're giving to you to fix it. Saints, don't stand with this world beast system. Stand with Yeshua and be saved. You hear me? My analysis. Number one, the events you see unfolding in the world cannot be stopped. It can't be stopped. This is the word of God as per the Bible prophecies. The red horse rider has been released. Number 2, America will not be destroyed until a 10-nation alliance is formed, with America leading the alliance. Currently, we have a G7 nation. Need 3 more to make the 10-nation alliance. Number 3, Putin will conquer Ukraine or destroy it at a minimum. He has his eye on Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. Let's face it, they are low-hanging fruits to take, very small countries to dominate. Number 4, America will be invaded by a 10-nation confederacy with actual boots on the continental United States. You must ask yourself, what would cause this 10-nation alliance who gave their allegiance to the beast, to America, to turn on America? What did America do in secret which has come to light? Number 5, if America thinks that it can isolate or ostracize countries as large as Russia, Iran, and China from the international community without any whiplash, they are sadly mistaken. China, Iran, and Russia will respond firmly and decisively to America's hegemony. They are not afraid of the United States, and nukes will be exchanged. Number 6, Trump will emerge as the shining savior for America and the world and will declare a 10-nation alliance to combat the so-called growing aggression of Russia and China. This is the Great Reset, or the New World Order. Number 7, there will be another great American eclipse in 2024 and will be America's last warning from God. They will elect a cruel king in November. Expect civil unrest as a minimum, even civil war as the latter. Chaos in America. Trump will be reelected. It is his appointed time as per the Bible. Number 8, Trump will go to war with Iran, possibly in the year 2025. This will allow him to confirm the peace deal with Israel and her neighbors. It will be easy to do. No more Iran. He will solidify this peace deal in the year 2026, thereby giving the so-called Abrahamic Accords teeth for a period of 7 years, as per Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. Number 9, Trump, indwelt by Satan, will also break this said peace deal in the midst of the week, possibly the year 2029 into 2030. An asteroid known as Apophis is also set to visit the Earth in that time frame. I strongly believe this is the 5th trumpet as per the book of Revelation, which means Satan will be here on earth at that time. Interestingly enough, the death decree will be issued by the false prophet for anyone without the mark of the beast, 30 days after Satan's arrival. This will be the 1,290 days marker of the tribulation. Many will die as a result of this decree. Also of note, know that the 2 witnesses will arrive at the same time as Satan does, at the 1,260 days. And also the woman, which is Israel, will be taken into the wilderness, where they will be shielded from the face of the serpent, the dragon, Satan himself. Number 10, look for these events to unfold in rapid succession between 2022 and the year 2023. Why? Israel must burn weapons for 7 years, as per the Ezekiel prophecy, or Ezekiel 38 and 39 prophecies, the Gog and Magog war. Most of the preliminary wars will be fought, such as Isaiah 17 war, the burden of Damascus, Damascus being destroyed, and also to meet Agenda 2030 must be met. Those 17 developmental goals must be met as per the UN Charter. Okay? That's my analysis. I have more to depict, but I'm going to save those for now and keep them close to my vest. What I suspect will be the unfolding of Bible prophecies. All right. Now listen to Putin. We're going to delve into the mind of Putin.
Сейчас мы слышим, что нужно сделать бесполетную зону на территории Украины. Сделать это невозможно на самой территории Украины. Можно только с территории каких-то соседних государств. Но любое движение в этом направлении будет нами рассматриваться как участие в вооруженном конфликте той страны, с территории которой будут создаваться угрозы для наших военнослужащих. Мы в эту же секунду будем рассматривать их как участниками военного конфликта. И уже все равно, какими там членами они являются.
Megyn Kelly, but again, you say that you are going to use these weapons, these nuclear-powered weapons if Russia or its allies come under attack. Any attack or only a nuclear one? Vladimir Putin, there are two reasons why we would respond with our nuclear deterrence forces, a nuclear attack on the Russian Federation or a conventional attack on the Russian Federation, given that it jeopardizes the state's existence. Megyn Kelly, that is consistent with the existing Russian doctrine on the use of nuclear weapons. Vladimir Putin, exactly, there are two possible reasons for a nuclear retaliation. Megyn Kelly, you are a politician. Vladimir Putin, I am also an officer, and I am the commander-in-chief. I also served as a military intelligence officer for 17 years. Megyn Kelly, are you proud of that fact? Do you like the fact that you were in the KGB? Do you like people to know that? Vladimir Putin, I do not see it from an emotional perspective. This gave me a lot of experience in the most diverse fields. I found it useful when I moved on to the civilian sector. Of course, this positive experience helped me in this sense. Megyn Kelly, how so? How did it help? Vladimir Putin, you know, after I left the intelligence service, I worked as assistant rector at St. Petersburg University. I worked with people, established contacts, motivated people to act and brought them together. This is very important in the academic environment. Later, I was deputy mayor of St. Petersburg. I assumed even greater and broader responsibility. I dealt with St. Petersburg's international ties, and that is a metropolis with a population of 5 million people. While working in this capacity in St. Petersburg, I first met Henry Kissinger. Of course, all this helped me in my work at that time, and my additional experience later helped me in my work in Moscow. Megyn Kelly, do you think it gives you an advantage over your adversaries and your allies? Vladimir Putin, it is hard for me to say. I have no other experience. The only thing I know is that my partners, including heads of state and government, are exceptional and outstanding people. They have gone through stringent selection and elimination procedures. There are no chance people at this level. And each of them has his or her own advantages. Megyn Kelly, what about that? You have been in power for a long time here in Russia, poised to go into another term as president. You have had 4 American presidents come and go during that time. I am wondering if you had a favorite, if there was one you liked more than the others? Vladimir Putin, I am sorry, but this is not a very tactful question. Each of my partners is good in their own right. In all, we had good relations with practically all of them. With Bill Clinton, though he was leaving office, we were able to work together for several months. Then with Presidents Bush, Obama, and with the current president too, but to a lesser extent, of course. All of them have something to respect them for. At the same time, we can argue and disagree with each other, and it happens often. We have diverging views on many issues, even on key ones, but we nevertheless managed to maintain normal, human relations. If it were not for that, it would have been not only harder, but much worse for everyone. Megyn Kelly, how important do you think it is to project strength as a president? Vladimir Putin, it is important not to project strength, but to show it. It is also important how we understand power. It does not mean banging the table with a fist or yelling. I think power has several dimensions. Firstly, one should be confident that he is doing the right thing. Secondly, he must be ready to go all the way to achieve the goals. Megyn Kelly, now what about you personally? Your elections are coming up in 2 weeks. You are 65 years old now. Most people would be slowing down a little in their lives. Do you see that for yourself at all in the future? Vladimir Putin, first, there are many politicians around the world who are older than I am and who are still working active. Megyn Kelly, including in my country. Vladimir Putin, not only in the United States, in other countries, too. There are many such people in Europe and everywhere in the world. But if a person assumes the highest offices, he must work as if he is doing it for the first and last day of his life. There is the Constitution. I have never violated it and have never changed it. Of course, if voters give me the opportunity to serve another term, I will do it to the best of my ability.
During his annual year-end press conference, a 4-hour marathon, Vladimir Putin affirmed a positive outlook on talks with the West in January over a Russian military buildup on the Ukrainian border, though it seems they'll come with a red line for Moscow if progress is to be made.
We put it straight. There must be no further expansion of NATO eastward. There must be no further
We put it straight.
eastward. There must be no further
We put it straight.
eastward. There must be no further
We put it straight.
eastward.
There must be no further
We put it straight.
eastward.
There must be no further
We put it straight.
There must be no further
We put it straight. During his annual year-end press conference, a 4-hour marathon, Vladimir Putin affirmed a positive outlook on talks with the West in January over a Russian military buildup on the Ukrainian border, though it seems they'll come with a red line for Moscow if progress is to be made.
We put it straight. There must be no further expansion of NATO eastward. What is there not to understand? We put it straight. There must be no further expansion of NATO eastward. What is there not to understand? We put it straight. There must be no further expansion of NATO eastward. What is there not to understand?